is a fun one. So we are talking all about some good poolside reads and our top favorite books of the summer. We both have 3 each, so it's going to be a good one.
If you haven't already, be sure to hit that red subscribe button below because we don't want you to miss out on any of our upcoming videos. Right now we're... My voice is like not working. Right now we're on our summer schedule. We're posting twice a week, so make sure that you hit the notification bell so you get notified every time we post. We've got some exciting videos coming for y'all this summer. Yeah, this summer. I'm going to tell y'all about this book that I absolutely loved. I'm just going to go ahead and start talking about it. Okay, it's called The Chase. It's by Kyle and Kelsey Kapitsky, something like that. They're a husband and wife, and I kind of like was embarrassed to read this book in public because it's called The Chase, and then underneath it it's set like the subtitle is Trusting God with Your Love Story or something like that, and I was like, oh, I don't want to read that in public, like, oh, that made me feel weird, but I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it. And that was like my favorite book to read by the beach because it's not super long and it's not like a hard read or anything, but it's a really, really good book. And it's by a husband and wife, like I said, and the girl takes a chapter and then the guy takes a chapter, and it goes back and forth. They kind of talk about like how they had to trust God with finding them, like with finding their soulmates, and I don't know, it just talks a lot about like being picky and it not being bad, and then it also could be bad. Like, it just talks a lot about that, and it's really interesting. If you're single right now, I really encourage you to read this because it would probably, you could get through it in like a week or 2. It's just a really good read. It's simple, and it honestly changed my mindset about dating and stuff, so I really encourage you all to read that as well.
So my first book is called The Hate You Give, and it is by Angie Thomas. Yes. So this book is all about this book is current, like with the ebb and flow of the current political climate. So if you're not about that, sorry. But it is also a young adult book, so it's like for the younger generation, but it's like slightly political. I don't know how else to explain it. But it is about this young African-American woman who is growing up, and I think she is in like sophomore year or something like that of high school. She's like in the high school age group, and she goes to a private like prep school in the book, and then like in real life well, not in real life, but like she goes to a private prep school, and then she lives in like the ghetto area of town, like a not great area of town. And so she talks about like balancing her life as someone who's like nice enough of an African American to like be in a nice school because her parents have money, but like not too much money because they also live like in the suburbs, or like in the, I guess it's the suburbs. So anyway, she ends up having a really traumatic experience witnessing one of her best friends get shot, and he passes away unfortunately, and then she was like one of the only witnesses there that night, and I think it was, if I remember correctly, it's like a gang shooting, and so she was the only person that was there that night, and she is the only person that had like who knows the truth about why her friend got killed. And there's all this media publicity saying that he was a thug, that he was a gang member, and that he was like, he must have been doing something wrong, he must have had drugs, like blah 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 blah. But none of this was true. And so the main character, her name is Star, she is like balancing, trying to figure out like how to tell this story because she doesn't feel black enough to be black, but she's not white, but she goes to a prep school. So it follows like her journey. It was a really, really interesting read. It's a pretty fast read. It's not super long. I think it's got about 20 or 30 chapters. And it's one of those books that like once you hear the story, you're like, what? Like, how did that happen? And it's a really fast-paced type of book, which I really enjoy. It is a secular book, but I usually, during the summertime, I like pick more secular options, and then during like the rest of the year, I read very like non-secular Christian books. So I think it's nice to have something that kind of takes you out of the world when you're by the pool or by the beach, because you get to like experience a different lifestyle, which I think is just so much fun.
This book has been such a good read for me. I really want to reread it now that I've read it once. It's called Faith Crisis by Ron Dunn. I think his full name is Ronald Dunn, but it's not like a necessarily easy read. It will really challenge your faith, and it's just really good. And I don't even know how to describe it because you just have to read it for yourself, even if you're not a Christian. But if you are a Christian, especially read this book. He gives so many good illustrations and just talks about how we as Christians, as daughters and sons of the King, have so many like untapped things that like we haven't even realized yet because we don't have enough faith. Like, it's just a really, really good book, and it'll shape your spirituality in a good way, and it'll really grow you closer to God. And I really, really, really encourage you to read that. And it shouldn't take you too long. It's not a long book, but it's not necessarily an easy read, but it's a really good read.
So my next book, I think, is probably one of my favorite secular books that I've ever read. So this one is called Where the Crawdads Sing. It was in Reese Witherspoon's book club this year, and I think it's one of Oprah's choices too. It's gotten ravenous reviews this season. So the book takes place in our home state, which is North Carolina. And so I, first of all, love books that are set in this state, because whenever they're talking about like different towns and stuff, I'm like, oh my gosh, I know where that's at.
I've been there.
Yeah. So I love reading books like that. So anyway, it's a fiction book, so it's like not true, right? That's what fiction means. Okay, yeah. I was like, wait. So it's a fiction book, so obviously it's not true, but it is a good read. It's a pretty quick read too. It's not a very thick book. So it's about this legend of the Marsh Girl. And there is like this girl that lives in the marsh. Her name is Kaya or Kia. I don't know how to pronounce it. I called it Kaya. It's about this girl named Kaya, and there is a murder that takes place in this like town, and everyone's like, oh, it's gotta be the Marsh Girl. Like, she's crazy, blah, blah, blah. But all of these rumors about the Marsh Girl are not true. She actually, when you dive into the character, she is actually a really sensitive, very loving type of girl who just happened to grow up in the marsh. Like, she had nothing to do with any of these rumors, and all the things that people are saying happened in the marsh, like, never happened. And then there are some guys who come into town to like investigate the murder, and they end up like falling in love with her or like stuff like that. So it's like a murder mystery plus a love story plus like finding like a coming of age, like finding yourself and coming inside of yourself and learning how to be your own person and not give into rumors around you and stuff.
Sounds good.
It's a really, really good read, and it like once you get into the story, it again, like, it's like The Hate U Give. Once you get into the story, you like almost don't want to put it down. And then the more the story goes along, the more you're like, wait, no, I don't want it to end. I don't want it to end, because like it just gets so good. And it's super easy. Like I said, I think it's probably like 20 chapters. It's like not a lot. It's really, really easy to read. Very fun read by the pool.
So, I don't know about y'all, but I'm into poetry. I love poetry, and especially if I'm outside, like, with nature, by the pool, at the beach, I love to read poetry because it doesn't take too much of my headspace. So, my favorite poet is Elizabeth Barrett Browning, and she has she has a collection of her. She was famous for writing sonnets. She has a collection, and they're called Sonnets from the Portuguese. And my favorite is sonnet number 42, so go read it. And it's like most of them are love poems, which is, I don't know, cliche, girly, whatever, but I really like them. And they're just really beautifully written, and if you want something to just sit down and read, like some eloquent writing while you're sitting by the pool or by the beach, then this is definitely a book for you. It's not super expensive, don't think so. And I think you can get like online copies too. It's a really, really good read, and especially if you love poetry, you should definitely have some of Elizabeth Barrett Browning's stuff on your bookshelf.
So my next read is it's a non-secular book, and this one, I would say it can be a light read, but it can also be a heavy read. It just kind of depends on how deep you take yourself into the book. So it is called Everybody Always by Bob Goff. First of all, Bob Goff is like my favorite writer of all time, like non-secular wise, and I think like his ministry is incredible. If you don't know about Bob Goff, do some research because he's amazing. He's most famous for writing his first book, which was Love Does. Or I don't know if that was his first book, but that's like his most famous book, Love Does. And if you've read that and you like that book, then you will love Everybody Always, because it's kind of like a more in-depth of Love Does, but focusing on your community and like coming together as one in Christ. And it is such a challenging read. Like, it is one of those that like it's an easy read if you like don't take yourself too deep into the book, like if you're just kind of reading it. But if you're actually doing like the analysis like he challenges you to, it is like a mind-blowing faith read. It gives you such a different perspective on your community and the people around you and how you love them and how you treat them and how you can be a minister to them in all of these different scenarios. It's just such a good book. Anything that Bob Goff writes is like incredible. And I definitely recommend reading this book more than once, because you will get more out of it the more that you read it, especially because Bob Goff is one of those writers that like he stuffs so much into his books. Like, I think the book is like less than 100 pages. It's like probably 60, 70 pages long. It's not long at all. But there's so much information and there's like such a depth of knowledge in the book that every time you read it, you're going to find something new. I think I've read it probably like 3 times this summer, and it's so good. Personally, I recommend taking notes with it because I think that's the best way to like analyze it. But it can also be a light like reminder type of book when you're just like chilling by the pool to like remind yourself to love people and share the gospel and stuff like that.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. So be sure to leave a comment if you have read these books or if you have any other summer reads that you have enjoyed that you want to suggest for anybody else.
Please, please, please. I'm a massive bookworm and I love reading. So please put your book suggestions below.
And be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, because that really helps us out. If you're new here, we just wanted to introduce ourselves. So we are 2 best friends living a faith-based lifestyle and
documenting it. Make sure that you guys hit that subscribe button below. I know we've said that a lot recently, but we are trying to get to 300 by the end of 2020, and we would love it if you would click that subscribe button. Plus, if you've made it this far in the video, you might as well subscribe because you obviously had a good time. Make sure that you also click that notification bell beside of it so that you get notified every time we post.
Our next video that's coming out is a really exciting one. I'm excited to do this. It's ways to improve your Instagram, and we're going to give some tips of how to grow your Instagram if you're into that. I know some people are trying to like become influencers and all that kind of stuff, so we have some tips of how we personally grown our Instagram and just some tips that we've learned from other people. So be sure to watch that.
Bye, friends!